door open? Who opened the door?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to pull it off? Okay. All right. So if we can come together, we don't want to hold the city manager too long. We got 2 more days in legislative session before sine die, and she's got a whole lot she's trying to get done on behalf of the city. So first and foremost, thank you everyone for coming out. I appreciate you as always showing up. If you had not had a chance to sign in, we've got a sign-in table here. As always, we have our wonderful men and women in blue in the back to assist you with any needs that you may have relative to the police department. And then there are some snacks in the back as well, because y'all know I don't believe in bringing y'all out and not giving you at least a little something to nibble on, because I know that this is, we're getting into lunchtime. By way of just one update, I did from Monday's town hall meeting, the Chief Meadows did send his team out as promised about the homeless encampment. What he discovered is that homeless encampment is not on park property. It is on private property, and that home is owned by an LLC, so it's corporate owned. So the police now are working to try to find and identify the owner, because the owner is going to have to deal with that homeless encampment. It's not on park property. So, we're gonna continue to work on that and continue to try to get that cleaned up. And so that's my only announcement. I'm gonna get out your way. I want to bring up our new permanent city manager, Sharon Subadan. We are delighted to have her. If you have not been watching the council meetings on YouTube or coming to the council meetings, I strongly encourage that you please do watch or come, because she is taking the city to, newer heights and doing things that we've been begging to be done for years are finally getting done. So we're super excited that she agreed to take us on. We know that we're problem children and we give her a lot of headaches, but she handles all of us like a champ and with a lot of patience and a lot of grace. So y'all please be nice to her. Don't scare her off. We need to keep her. But yes, Ms. Subadan, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Right? Well, it's a pleasure to be here. By way of introduction, I think it's important when meeting new people for the first time, you have an opportunity to know who I am, and hopefully in time I'll get to know who you are as well. I'm Sharon Subadan. It's a little hard to say, but just think of Subaru with a Dan, Subadan, or you can call me Sharon, Miss Sharon, Miss City Manager, whatever you prefer. But I come to you after, this year is going to be 34 years in the municipal space. Some of you may notice I have a little bit of an accent. I moved here from Jamaica with my husband in the 80s. And anybody, so some of you have a little bit more gray, so you'll appreciate this. Y'all remember Living Color?
Yes, sir.
All right. You remember the Jamaicans who had the 3 jobs?
Yes.
I was one of them people. So we moved from Jamaica. Jamaica, there's only like 3 ways to get into the United States. You come in through Miami, Atlanta, or New York. So we came in through Miami as a very young couple and in search of the American dream. And I'm happy to tell you that we found our American dream by going to school and working our 3 jobs. My first job here in the United States, real job, was with Eastern Airlines. How many of you remember Eastern Airlines?
Oh, yeah.
So these young people, they don't even know what that is. I have to tell them, Eastern was back then what Delta is today, right? And all of you know the wings of man. I was that girl. And so if you remember when Eastern went out of business, my husband and I had just bought a house, our first house, 1,300 square foot on a 0 lot line in South Miami-Dade. We had 2 car payments, and I was pregnant. So, it was the trifecta. No, God worked it out for us. And within a year, I got recalled, But by then I was big pregnant. You know, people talk this and that about affordable health care. You know, when you're unemployed and pregnant, it's a scary thing. We almost lost our home, we almost lost our cars, but God came through, and I took my first job in Miami-Dade County, making $4.75 an hour. But I was grateful, because I had a real job, no big money. It was a real job with health insurance. And after about a week of sitting in front of a green screen, putting in police reports for 10 hours a day, and y'all can't write still. Back then, they couldn't write. They still can't write. You can't read their handwriting. Doing that for 10 hours a day, I realized I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And so I went back to school as an adult, had a baby, and went to community college in the evening, got my first associate's degree, then got a bachelor's degree, and much later on, I went back and got a master's degree, but was fortunate in Miami-Dade to get opportunities. And I took the jobs that nobody else wanted. I worked in bus maintenance, I worked in transit, I worked in fleet management, but I got a lot of operational experience in a huge county that offered me opportunities to learn county government. And a big part of what I know now is because of the work that I did when I was a very young person. After 10 years in Miami-Dade County, by then we had 3 children, because 4 years after my Eastern baby, we had twins, so I have 3 sons. And in between that, my sister had a daughter. She was single at the time, so she was raised with my children. So technically, I have 3 children, but we raised 4 children. And after 10 years in Miami-Dade, we decided we wanted a different environment for our children. I had the opportunity to go to Montgomery County, Maryland, which is a DC metro suburb. And there I was a division chief in public works. Worked there for 7 years. Great experience for our children, because they were able to see a much more diverse population. They saw people successful who looked like us. They frequently were able to go down to DC, to museums, to experience America. After 7 years in Montgomery, 8 years in Montgomery, 7 years in Montgomery County, the then executive wasn't running. It was a strong-layered form of government, and several department heads got replaced. I wasn't one of them, but I was the next level down as a division chief. So I went back to Florida, to Tampa, Florida, as a department head, where I worked for Hillsborough County for 8 years. It was in Hillsborough County I was able to become an assistant county administrator, and that allowed me the opportunity to lead at a much higher level. I had a team of 2,500, I had a budget of $475 million, and that gave me the desire to become a city or county manager. And at that time, after 8 years, I took a position in Albany, Georgia, as the city manager in Albany, where I was there for 6 years. Albany is a full-service city. I enjoyed my experience. I think unless you live in rural America, you don't really know America. And so we had a great experience in Albany. But after 6 years, I decided I wanted to come back to a city, which was more consistent with my background. And I had the opportunity to come here to be Douglas County Administrator for a little while, after which I left and became a consultant. And a year ago, the city of South Fulton asked me if I would consider coming on board as their interim city manager. And I said, I'll do it for 6 months. I'll walk away from my consulting practice for 6 months. And I brought a team. After about 3 months, I started to fall in love, which is always challenging. And later on, the council has been very gracious and made me an offer to be your permanent city manager. And so that's my very long story. So I wanted to share that story with you because you know how people see you today and they think this is who you are, but they don't know there's a long history behind you. And all of us have a story. All of us have history, but that history makes us who we are. That experience helps us when we sit in front of problems that we experience today, right? And so, turning a corner, I want to say I'm very pleased to be here in the city of South Fulton. We are doing great things. Last year, the council adopted a $206 million budget That budget includes numerous initiatives for this community in the areas of infrastructure. We're investing in our parks, we're investing in everything from streetlights to repaving. Yes, 2 days ago, we were at a groundbreaking for a roundabout that's been in the works for 6 years. And so this council has been very supportive of me as we have tried to move forward our infrastructure agenda. I went back and looked at our numbers. Right now, today, we have over $120 million in construction projects happening in the city of South Fulton. These are all road projects all over the community. You'll see resurfacing coming to your neighborhoods. You'll see us looking at opportunities to install more streetlights. You'll see us moving forward with partnership opportunities for big projects with Georgia DOT. Some of those are federally funded, some have state and federal funding, some of them have federal, state, and our local dollars. So I said at that groundbreaking, if people say we're not doing anything, it's not true. A lot of work is being done. South Fulton is a large city with large boundaries that extend over 100 square miles. So even though you may not see it in your immediate backyard, there's a lot of stuff happening. Also in this current year budget, the council has supported me in establishing debt service. Debt service is essentially the money that we would use to, in layman's terms, pay our mortgage on new facilities. And so we want to build the police headquarters, which is actually being expected to be built on Old National. That land has already been acquired where the old Jackson Music Store used to be. We've acquired that land and we are getting ready to go out to bid. We are gonna have some community meetings to let you know what's coming. You know, I like to learn from other people's mistakes. I don't want people to think this is Cop City. We ain't those people. You know, we just really want you to understand what's coming to that space. That space is not just gonna be police headquarters. There'll be a linear park. There'll be a community center. We hope to have a municipal court. We may not be able to do it all at one time, but that is the plan. And so that is forthcoming. We are also we've also procured land on Cascade Palmetto to build a fire headquarters and training center. And we will shortly be going out for bid. Right after police, we'll be going out to bid for that fire headquarters. And so the last thing, near and dear to my heart, is a city hall. We need to establish ourselves as a grown-up city. You know, I tell people that South Fulton is only 6.5 years old, but we're like a toddler walking around in a grown man's body. So just imagine all the challenges that we have as a city because we sort of grew overnight. You know, we had a budget 3 or 4 years ago, 79 million. Now the budget is 206. A lot of that is the services that you all need and you have demanded, and the priorities that you have shared with your elected officials. So things like additional public safety and police and fire are areas where we are investing on behalf of the city, and that has caused our budget to increase. So police headquarters, fire headquarters and training, and then of course our city hall. Other things that we are embarking on are improved cameras throughout the city for us to be able to identify illegal dumping. We are very bothered by the fact that we have so much illegal dumping in our community. We really are I think we need an anti-litter campaign, but in addition to that, I think you encourage people, and so you have, you know, the carrot that says, you know, please don't litter, but you also have the stick, which is the, you know, we caught you on camera, here's your tag number, we're gonna issue you up to $1,000 fine, you know, for littering in this area. Somebody asked me earlier about traffic calming. We do have money in the budget for speed camera, from speed cameras for traffic calming. We've been working with an ordinance that's a few years old, that's not really working for us. And so, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And so one thing we're gonna be doing is bringing some changes to council on Tuesday to lower the criteria for speed humps, which will allow more projects to qualify. And we do have money in the budget for that. Parks Master Plan was passed last year, not long before I got here. We are investing some funding into the Parks Master Plan, and our goal is to have outdoor pools, one down here in this part of the city, and one in the north part of the city in District 4, in addition to getting Welcome All Pool back online. So there's more opportunity for kids to learn how to swim. I was a swimmer growing up. I learned to swim as a young child. It's great exercise. To me, learning to swim is an essential tool for children. And so I'm very interested in seeing that get proliferated, as well as other parks initiatives. This park, we put money in the budget for a fence around this park. That money is in the budget for this current year. We will be following up with General Services and our Parks Director to see how those plans are coming in order to make this park more secure. So I have said a lot, and so what I would like to do is open the floor and open it up to any questions that you may have. I'll do my best to answer those questions. If I don't, I'll have a way to get back to you. The only thing I ask is that you introduce yourself, let me know who you are. I'm good with faces, but I'm not good with names, but eventually I'll get to know you. So I'll open up the floor. Yes, sir?
Horace Coppers. I write you a lot. I wrote you about the garbage collection problem. I live in a cul-de-sac, and a lot of times the mail carrier will not get out of her van to put mail in the box. So if the garbage van's in the way, she will move off the car. I can understand that. So we just simply ask that the garbage carrier will put it back on the lawn. That's all we ask. The other quick question I have is, where are they gonna put that roundabout? I hope it's not 138.
The one that they opened yesterday is in District 2 and 3, between District 2 and 3.
Because we were wondering, cars on 138 and that's safe, because we had a lot of wrecks. Big trucks are coming in that direction. They're gonna have a problem trying to get around the roundabout. We have a lot of big trucks coming from that direction. That's all.
In terms of solid waste, so I'm gonna be taking notes. So Waste Pro and the garbage collection is one of those things that I inherited, but when you come on board, as a city manager, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, whether you like it or not. I wasn't here for the beginning of it, but it's my baby now. So, I have to try to figure out how to make it work. But those are the kinds of things we need to be able to pass along and hold their feet to the fire. So we'll take some notes, and I'll make sure to go back and pass that information on. Thank you. I think I saw his hand here and here.
I'm Violet Crawford. I'm the president of the Friends of Field Park. So my primary interest today in asking questions would be to ask, what are the plans for Field Park? It was traditionally ignored under the previous administration, and we're just trying to make sure that we're included.
Somebody's taking the floor.
And we're just trying to make sure that we're included in the plans for development from the city of South Fulton. Like, I understand that there's going to be a fence that's supposed to be installed around the back end over there by the field. And we're also looking to see if there are plans for like a larger building so that we can have more programs here. There's a lot of need in the community for programs and activities, but apparently this facility, or obviously this facility, is not exactly equipped for a lot of programs.
Sure.
But we don't want that to hold the community back because we don't have the facilities that we need. So what we were trying to pursue was, are there plans for a larger building? Are there plans for more programs in the park? Because we've had several situations in the park and we're trying to minimize those things happening again.
Sure. Great questions. So the city has a parks master plan. It is available on our city website. And if we can get I'm sure we have your information. I'll send you the link. When you look at the link, you can actually click on each park and it can show you conceptually the kinds of things that were identified by park. So I can't tell you just off the top of my head what was planned, but that will be a place for us to look at that. If it wasn't included, and I doubt that it wasn't included because I know Councilwoman Williams-Brown. So I'm pretty certain that she would have advocated for what it is she thought that you needed. It's a two-part, right? You know, the only time Build It and They Will Come works is on Field of Dreams, you know? When we build it, we have to be prepared to pay for the staff to program it. So I have to look at kind of both sides to make sure that both things are tracking, to make sure that even when we build the additional space, I have to program in the budget additional staff to be able to program that space. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I did see in one of the renderings that there looked like there was the addition of a building or another building expansion.
Right. So that is in our Parks Master Plan.
And I didn't see you doing on the fence, but I understand that that is also in the works.
That is true. And the fence was not part of the master plan. That was something Councilwoman Williams-Brown asked us to include in this current year budget. So part of my charge and my list of things to do is to go back with the Parks Director and General Services Director to figure out where we are with that project.
Is that also including additional programs and things of that sort? Is that in part of the master plan, or is this just capital improvement?
The plan generally focuses on master for capital, which is gonna be buildings, but on the other side of that, we have to do the work in the operating budget for additional staff for programs.
So I wouldn't find all that in the master plan necessarily. I'd have to go to the budget and then I'd have to go to the master plan.
Yeah, the master plan is gonna lay out the capital. What I would do is, when that programming is done, meaning that actual physical space is done, the following year budget, we would have staff. Because we don't wanna open a building with no people.
Exactly.
And we don't wanna hire people with no building. So we have to make these things kind of flow together.
We're just trying to make sure that we're not
Left out.
left out.
Right. Now, the master plan was over many years and many dollars. They suggested that we do a park bond. I don't know that we're really ready for that. What I'm trying to do is fund it with dollars as we go, as opposed to floating a bond just for parks. If we get to the point where we need a bond, then that would be a discussion that we would have with the council. So I'm trying to work with the resources that we already have.
Is the master plan like a 2-year plan? 1-year plan?
No, I think the master plan is more like a 10-year plan. And so we do a little bit every year. So this year I programmed, I think, $3.5 million of the $25 million to start. And the emphasis this year is the pools. Next year, when we get ready to do the budget, my plan is to put another allocation of dollars for the next piece of it, which would be capital. So once the pools are built, I'm gonna have to have the dollars to hire for lifeguards and swim camp training and all the other things that go along with that period when the pools are open. And we would do the same thing. We are, this is the next on the list. First year would be the capital, following years would be the staff to be able to provide the programming. So it's a linear process. And part of what I'm trying to do is work with the resources that we have. How many people in here want tax increases? That is a hard no. That's a hard no, right?
Don't love the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was the question?
I said, how many people like tax increases? Yeah, and so what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to use a pay-as-you-go model with you working with the resources that we already have, as opposed to floating a park bond is essentially a mortgage where you would have to repay that and the repayment would come from taxpayers. And so I'm trying to see how much we can do with the resources that we already have in order to get through the Parks Master Plan and all these other things that we have ongoing, if that makes sense. It's a lot. Yes, sir. Hold on. I think you were next. Yes.
I sympathize with your being new and inheriting quite a few things. I'm coming to you on behalf of Old National Peace and we place a request for your, an audience with you in reference to some crucial concerns. We did get a response back stating that you're investigating the situation prior to a meeting with us, which has been now have been a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And I have not asked you today to have to recall what's on your calendar, but I am asking you to please, once you look at your, the request in your calendar, that you expedite that meeting. When I say crucial, it's more of a safety problem right now that we're trying to, even though individuals have been hurt and they have been hospitalized, and the list goes on. It is a crucial problem that we need to get, need your attention to.
Okay.
So if you would,
I'm asking Ratanja to take notes for me. I will tell you, Councilwoman is right. You know, they say the most dangerous days in Georgia are when the General Assembly is in session. We have 2 more voting days, Tuesday and Thursday, in the general session. We have had many issues that, and one in particular that came up in the last 2 weeks, where we are heavily engaged with the general session. So that has taken up a lot of my time in addition to the day-to-day operations of the city, which is my day job. And almost all of April, I'm going to be advocating in Washington for some grant opportunities that we have put forward, as well as there's a training opportunity with National Forum for Black Public Administrators that I'll be attending in that area. So April calendar looks really, really bad, but I will make sure we circle back, because if I can't do it, I'll have my assistant city manager, Dr. Mark Anthony Cooper, attend for me and bring the right staff to the table to try to get your immediate needs. Okay, you're welcome. And there was a hand over here. Yes, sir?
Yeah, my name is Sergeant Pruitt. I'm from the Hillendale subdivision. And we have several properties over there that a lot of houses have been emptied, and all the items is out in the yard, look like Sanford & Son. It's been over there for about a year or so. And it's just a big eyesore for the neighborhood. I believe I spoke with you earlier about this. Nothing has been done about it.
Okay. It's not ringing a bell. You could have. I'll be honest with you. I get hundreds of emails a day. And so I do try to be responsive. But again, if Ratanja can get your name and phone number, what we will probably do is just use our contractor to remove it. Part of the challenge is when the dumping is on private property, we really do need a right of entry to be able to go on private property to remove it. Sometimes that's really challenging, because you heard Councilwoman Williams Brown say some of these properties are owned by LLCs that we can't get a hold of. And so, you know, we don't want you to be living in a situation where it's a public health.
Right, and it's creating a lot of rats and everything else, plus little kids and stuff can go in those areas and get hurt because there's broken glass and everything else is in there.
Sure. Well, under the umbrella of public health, there's some things that we can do. And so I'll be sure that somebody follows back up on that specific information. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Roger Mathis. I am a teacher with Atlanta Public Schools, and I've been here in South Fulton since 2018. And I knew about South Fulton because my grandfather, he lived in Riverdale, so when I finished college and stuff, I decided to come here and live in South Fulton. I wanted to ask you a question, and I'm not sure if you can answer it for me, but it is, I attended a city council meeting last year, and one of the meeting agenda items was the hiring practice of South Fulton Police Department. And I was wondering if you would be willing to add an amendment to that item that was on the agenda, which would include the immediate termination of any South Fulton police officer that is found guilty of violating the civil rights of any resident of South Fulton. I've had some altercations with officers here with South Fulton. I don't have a criminal record, of course, I've been a teacher for almost 15 years. But the officers that have been patrolling our area have been uneducated. They have not been able to fulfill their duties as law enforcement. And I think that the training that needs to take place with the South Fulton Police Department needs to be enhanced, because these officers clearly don't know what they're doing. And I know that South Fulton, as you just said, is a 6-year-old city. And I think that that's one of the areas that we need to amplify or increase the training or the funding for the training of these officers.
So, good question. First of all, thank you for what you do. You know, I talked about my niece, who is like my daughter. She's a,
And you can imagine how
all right, I'm
intimidating
talking,
it is to be.
I'm talking now. So my niece, who is like my daughter, is a school teacher in the New York City public system.
Okay.
So thank you for what you do. But just like how you don't like it when people say, all teachers suck, these nowadays teachers don't care, these nowadays teachers, they're just in it for a short window, and you don't like that, because it's not fair and true, is it?
No, it's not.
It's not true. And so the same is said, and we're not trying to intimidate you. The police officers who are here today, many of them are on their day off today. They're here because they want this community to know that we support you. And well taken. I have a zero tolerance policy on bad behavior, on illegal behavior, and so whether it's in our policy or not, I have a zero tolerance policy. The police chief reports to me. And so that is my stance across our entire city of South Fulton staff. But your point is also well taken. We're a newer city. We're hiring officers all the time. Training is essential. You heard me say earlier, we're investing in our own training facility. And part of the reason for doing that is to make sure that all of our officers and all of our responders are trained to the maximum extent possible. We are a 21st century department. We do believe in community policing. We do believe in ensuring that people's civil rights are observed. And so your point is well taken, but I ask you humbly, not from my head, but from my heart, not to paint everybody with one broad brush.
No,
As a public servant,
I don't do that.
I'm talking, as a public servant, I think you know how hurtful it is when you get painted with a broad brush. Now, your turn.
Yes. No, I don't do that. I actually have a brother who was the police chief of Rancho Cucamonga in California. So I do appreciate all of the services. I've come across many great officers that I've met in South Fulton. Officer Denard was a really great guy. And again, I don't have any ill feelings towards policing. I value their services, and of course, I am charged with teaching students to respect, law enforcement. And of course, I do that on a daily basis, working in the Atlanta Public Schools. But my concern is that I'm not sure how well the checks and balances are for police officers, as well as for the chief of police. I understand that, as a new citizen and a new homeowner, and I have a whole lot of things that I've invested in my life. I would like those things protected, as well as the civil rights that I have to enjoy the freedoms that I have as a new homeowner, as a taxpaying citizen. So my question wasn't to attack anyone. It's to make sure that I've selected a great place to live, a great place to raise my family, a great place to leave back to, when in my passing, something for my family left behind. But I haven't been getting that vibe, that feeling, and I didn't want to paint a broad brush, but I wanted to address those instances, which, of course, there are some bad teachers. I'm a teacher. I come from a long line of teachers. I've identified some of those in my career, but I also know that the goal is for us to educate the next generation. So in saying that, I know that the goal is for us to be a 21st century policing agency, but also be able to hold people accountable for misconduct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything you said, I can co-sign.
Yes.
But thank you for your observation. Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Superintendent. Welcome to the city of South Fulton. And I don't know if you get enough sleep, because it's hard work, okay? Dealing with a whole city and keeping the charter, people in line with the charter. But I'm here representing the Friends of Creel Hall, okay? I'm on the advisory board for District 6. And when it was Fulton County, I was on the advisory board of Fulton County. When this field, when Eastern Airlines was living here, this was a field, nothing. It was owned by the Board of Education. That's the past, okay? And Michael Hightower had this facility built, also had Welcome Mall built, and expansion on Burnett. So, the Friends of Creel Park desires to work with Parks and Rec as a community organization, present recommendations, mainly to make this park a resource center, all right, for positive activities for youth, young adults, seniors, okay, and they desire to make the things they recommended a more priority, okay? Because this park has been neglected for about 30-some years, okay? Neglected. It has not been fully developed, okay, put it that way. So they are making recommendations to the director, and now you're here, so you can hear the things that they have recommended. One is the safety in this park, okay? Natasha, Councilwoman Natasha, just, there was a homeless problem. We brought it to their attention, she's acting on it. We appreciate that. But then also, we wanted the bathroom doors locked, because people go in there and they stay all night, lock the door. They have the ability to lock the door. The gate needs to be, after park hours, need to be locked. They need to be locked, because people come in here 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I don't know, maybe all night. Okay, so also programs, they are suggesting that we have STEM programs. We have, in other words, you network with the schools. You help increase the scores in the schools. Parks and Recs can do that with summer programs. I'm not aware of any summer programs here, okay? But it's very limited, okay, for youth. That's elementary, middle school, okay? High school, they do have some programs. Mainly the programs here are for seniors. So what about our future leaders? Okay, so Parks and Rec, a championship is great, but when they leave that championship, put the trophy up on the mantelpiece, then what? Well, are they going out there doing what? Are they being educated? So these are the things that people are looking for in this park, to work with Parks and Rec recommendations. Also for cultural activities, drama, arts and crafts. These are kinds of things that help keep our children out of trouble and want to explore with excitement. We're all elders. We only got so much time. What about the future? What about them? Okay? And for this park to have more to offer. It's a muddy field, not complete. It's mud. All-terrain bikes, go out there, spin around. It's free. So we do want to see more safety and cameras. And electric sign possibly, to let people know what's going on. That's great.
Sure. So you said a lot, but
Okay.
kind of going back to the answer earlier, in order to host programs, we have to have space.
Yeah.
And so,
There's no space.
I invoked your name when you weren't here.
No, that's
I said,
fine. I mean, I think because there is, as I told you, the Friends of Pearl meeting was on Monday, and so a lot of those concerns have already been addressed by the police chief, Chief Meadows, Neymar Strickland, Director of
And
IT.
cameras.
He was here, he's already provided the date and information that the cameras are gonna go in, so a lot of this has already been discussed and answers have been provided
Great,
on Monday.
great.
So, yeah, we had police chief, we had IT, we had Parks and Rec. Kayvon, who else did we have? Oh, okay,
I
yes.
think Code was here.
Code enforcement was here, yes, so we, all of the relevant departments were here and they've already spoken to all of this.
Good. Well, but, you know, always good for me to get your feedback, so I appreciate that. You know, my favorite saying is, and the staff knows this, is you can have anything, but you can't have everything. And so incrementally, we are implementing the things that we have immediate funding for. As shared earlier, you know, I'm certain in the Parks Master Plan discussion, additional facilities were discussed for this facility. As we build those, we will staff them. You know, we want to partner with the school system on education. As I said, I have 3 sons, and they all 3 were athletes, but none of them went to college on athletic scholarships. You know, they're 6'4", big guys. You know, 2 of the 3 of them are engineers. Because education to me is very, very key, very powerful, and opens the door to our economic future. And so, yes, I totally agree that, you know, we need to partner with the school system. We need to be about educating our children. We want a home for our seniors, recognizing that, you know, you have invested over 30 years in this community, and incrementally we will get there. And we solicit your patience as we do so. But I also do not want to be taxing the residents extra. We're trying to figure out how to make things work with the resources that we have on a pay-as-you-go model.
Just one thing, with that, because you did mention something about a bond. But is there a way that you can think outside the box,
That's what we're
how
doing.
Parks and Rec can be funded, not just here, but I'm
Citywide.
talking about citywide?
Sure.
Because Parks and Rec is, you know, when people move in this area and they see a nice park and we got nice activities, that helps the community.
It does.
All right.
It does. So we are looking at different aspects. Because we have so many needs in building, you know, critical facilities, many cities are far ahead of us. They already have police, fire, and a city hall. We're sort of building our foundation. And so I'm reluctant to go the route of a bond at this time, or make that recommendation to the council at this time. But we are looking at ways to be outside the box on how we can make some of these things happen. But great observation. I think there was a hand here, there, and there. Yes.
Good morning, James Johnson. Well, yeah, resident of Fulton County. I have one question and one question only. Does the city of South Fulton have a contingency plan for the Rick Ross event that's upcoming?
We do. Last year, we worked with our neighboring cities. It is challenging. Every year, it's challenging. Our, you know, law enforcement's in the room. We are already working. We know it's coming. We can't prevent it. It's on private property. We know it has a major impact to our public infrastructure and our businesses. We learned some lessons last year as well. And so we're going to incorporate that in the planning, but that planning has already started. It is not something that we can prevent, so we're working on that contingency plan, both with our district commission, council persons, as well as our counterparts on the other side, and law enforcement and public safety on both sides are working together.
And your office contacted specifically program?
My office has not, but that was one of the things we learned last year. And so the team that's working on this is actively engaged with all of the businesses, as well as with the event organizers, and as I said, our counterpart in the other jurisdictions.
And my sources tell me that Kroger has already agreed to allow Rick Ross to have parking in the parking lot at that specific time. The only problem I have with that is that Kroger only closes one day a year, which is Christmas. Okay, now, if they allow that event to take place, we got a lot of seniors, we got a lot of people that are disabled, small kids going in and out of their grocery store. That grocery store is predicated on staying in business by the community. Okay, now if the community is denied access to that particular business at that specific time, I don't think that's fair to us. Because there's probably many more opportunities Rick Ross can place his business in down the street where Ingles is. They closed it off. Ingles will not allow him to come in there. Now, I don't have anything against Rick Ross or him making money. However, I think it is not fair to the people in our community not to have access to groceries, pharmaceuticals, or anything else. We only have one grocery store in that 7-mile corridor, and Kroger is the only store. Walmart is not a grocery store.
They just pay one store that sells groceries. So, and also to add to that, state, our representative, State Representative Deborah Bazemore, she's also involved with working with the contingency plan. I was on the phone with her this morning because we are trying to pull together the managers of these stores so that she has the opportunity to meet with them, because her district is us, but she also has part of Fayetteville. And she just walked in so she can speak to the meeting that she's trying to organize with the Kroger and the Walmart to address some of these concerns.
Natasha, can I take you back on that just for a second?
Yes.
I'm also hearing that they're planning a big carnival or festival of some sort.
So I have not heard that. I know I've only been talking with State Representative Bazemore about the contingency plan for Rick Ross's event. Not aware of any type of, I know the Freaknik movie was on Hulu a couple days ago, but first let me step back because State Representative Bazemore has entered the room, and so she can give you more details about her work with the businesses to come up with a contingency plan for Rick Ross's car show. So, but everybody, this is our state representatives. Deborah Bazemore represents House District 69. And, as you all know, she was one of the pioneers who helped to fight to make the city of South Fulton a reality. So she used to be president of Old National, ONERU. So y'all know she's been around. For the new people who just moved in, y'all know that, I know my longtime residents and know all of her work, but for all of my new residents, she's been deeply rooted here on the Old National Corridor for just as long and working and fighting for us as she continues to do under the Gold Dome. But she's able to speak to the Rick Ross contingency plan.
Thank you to my councilwoman. I appreciate you. I do. And thank you to everybody that is assembled. And yes, my district has changed a little bit. I lost a few over here, but I gained a lot in my district. Fayette, I lost College Park and I lost Clayton County. But I have Fayette and I have a little piece of Union City, City of South Fulton, and Fayetteville. But as I came in, I was hearing you talk about Rick Ross. So a lot of times what people don't know and see is because we're working behind the scenes. So last year, there were several meetings. We met with many of the individuals that were connected to him. And we worked with the police, we worked with everybody over there. We had several meetings. The constituents wanted it to stop. And we thought we had gotten it stopped and canceled. However, a couple of people on the board over there, how many of you know how many people are on the county commissioners over there? And of color. Yeah, of color. In Fayetteville County? In Fayetteville. Okay. One. Russo.
Yeah, I know.
And so he, a lot of times, gets outvoted. Just like we do down at the Capitol, because we don't have the numbers. So what happened was they went through the back door and they decided it would be good business, good money coming in, so they allowed it. So we are right back again in the same situation. And so I am present every time this comes up. I have contacted his lawyer already when I got the notification. What are we gonna do? Because we're gonna try to stop this already, okay? So as of now, nothing has been said because they are determined to have this every single year. And so I talked to the chief of police last year over here, talked to the state, because that's a state highway. And I called them and I said, from my understanding, I was told that they weren't present last time. I said, wait a minute, did somebody dial my number? Who doesn't have my number in here? Because I called them and I said, this is your responsibility and you need to be present. And so they were present this time. And as you heard on the news, it was not a horrendous traffic jam as it was before, because the first time I was sitting in that traffic jam because we were invited and I was coming from another event and I couldn't move. And my chief of police, I called him and I said, you have to come get me. I can't move either way. And so he did. So we're trying to make sure that does not happen again, but we're trying to stop this altogether. The other thing I heard was about the merchants. So it really bothers me, and I know Merchants Association, it bothers you all. When you see signs that say College Park, I'm sorry, but Burlington is not in College Park. Neither is Kroger. All of these stores that have these signs up that say College Park. It was unincorporated Fulton County before we became a city. There are still people that argue with me. Oh, I lived in Atlanta. I said, did you ever vote in Atlanta? No. Well, if you didn't vote in Atlanta, you never lived in Atlanta. I lived in College Park. I asked the same question. And they continue to think. We have so many zip codes because we were unincorporated. So we have Atlanta, we have Fairburn. Mine says Riverdale. Who says Riverdale in here? Riverdale address? Riverdale, I don't live in Riverdale, but when I got here in 05, I wanted to go into action and help, and I go over to Riverdale and I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna get involved. They said, you don't live in Riverdale. That's when I found out. So we have Riverdale, College Park, Atlanta, all these different zip codes. I had contacted Congressman David Scott some years ago, and I said, we need to fix this because people don't understand. He then connected me to the U.S. Postmaster. When I talked to him on the phone and he told me what it was going to take to change all these zip codes to one, too much money, too much time. It is just impossible. And then I turned it over to the mayor of the city of South Fulton. I said, here you go. If you'd like to take this on, it's yours. So it is, it's a very large undertaking. It would cost us so much money to change all of these addresses. So I would say just contact your council person and find out where you live. And you've always lived in unincorporated South Fulton. The businesses, I know that we've talked, my council person and I have talked several times about this issue, and we are going to have a meeting, calling a meeting with all of these merchants to let them know and to ask them how much it's gonna cost you, because that's my concern too. I have to be cognizant of the fact that it's gonna cost them money to make these changes. However, we need everybody to know when they come into our city that you are in the city of South Fulton and not College Park. So when we sit down, we're gonna have the discussion about changing these labels. I walked into Kroger and I see this huge sign that says College Park. I walked into Burlington, the same thing, and I asked to speak to the manager, but they're not the ones that can make the changes. So we are going to have a meeting with those individuals to let them know that we'll give them time, but they need to change that so that they can be accurate in where they are located.
Good morning. It is
How
so
are
good to
you?
see you. Yes. I am concerned about the issue of housing as far as our community is concerned. It seems that corporations are determining what our communities now look like. So my question is, what can we do from the state legislature point of view to handle that? I'm very, very concerned because more and more you're seeing corporations come in, and that denies those people who are trying to be first-time homeowners an opportunity for a home. The other issue on housing is I'm concerned about the number of robocalls we get about wanting to buy our property when in fact we have not initiated it, and it becomes a major concern and a major problem and a nuisance. So I'm asking at this point, how can the state assist us in dealing with those challenges, which should not be in the first place?
So I'm going to deal with the last one first, because I don't know how many calls I receive. It is ridiculous. So I have started the conversation with my colleagues. What can we do? But then you think about it, if you stop that, that means any robocalls will be stopped. So we're trying to figure out how to do it without doing it for everybody that's necessary, those calls that are necessary. I'm telling you, we were out of session. I walked back in my office. I had 100 calls on my phone. They're all from solicitors, all from spam and all of that. So how do you get rid of it? And that's what we're faced with. So we are working on it. The other question you had, I don't know if you're aware that I sat on the housing study committee year before last. And what I heard just stirred me to no end. And it's to your point. We have investors coming into here, and I don't know if you heard the latest on the news, that there are so many, I think there are about 3 or 4. They have come in and targeted, and even before this happened, I had gotten news, Wall Street had targeted our section to buy houses. And so they have come in and bought up all of these, they are dictating how much housing costs right now. It's almost up to $400,000 for a starter house.
Rent them out.
A starter house and rent them out. And what they do is they rent them out for about 5 years, and they get their money out of it, and then they leave. And then we're left with the problem. But this is what I want to tell you. My colleagues that are in control, they don't care. They want them to buy. As a matter of fact, on the study committee, I brought that same issue up because when I found out the stats, in my district right here, it was said that they bought up about 60% of the houses here in our district, in our area. So the individual that was on the study committee with me, he says, so what do you want us to do? We can't stop people from coming in and buying and purchasing. So I said, okay. I said, I understand what you're saying. So what I'm gonna do is when I find out they wanna buy, I'm gonna send them to your district and let them buy your houses. I said, because this is out of control right now. We cannot control it, but we have had some bills, and I know some people have had heartburn with some of them that I signed, but we have to start somewhere. Nobody's doing anything. So we started to try to move the needle forward because we have to get people in affordable housing. Houses, period, because you just can't afford it anymore. And so that is our dilemma right now. But there have been several bills that have been on the table, and even this year, bills to address that issue. Okay? But I want to say,
Keep plugging for us, because we need it.
look, we don't have the numbers, but I'm still in the fight. I'm not going to stop fighting for my constituents. I will not stop fighting. And I'm going to tell you this. Just because we don't have the numbers, we need your voice. We need your presence. Do you know how many people come down there and protest and have a press conference inside the Capitol? And guess what? They notice and they start making changes to the bills. So please, we only have, who knows, we only have 2 days left of the session. 2 days. So Monday is a committee day. That means if my committees have a meeting, I have to go in. If they don't, I don't. Tuesday, we go in. We always have the day before sine die off to rest, because we go in 8 o'clock in the morning and we normally get out like 2 or 3 o'clock the next morning, because they are trying to get every bill possible passed. And I want to say something to that about the bills, and I'm gonna let her talk first.
My name is Vera Benjamin Freeman. I want to know if there is anything that they can do to stop these people from taking your deeds to your houses. Because the news that they had on this week about that couple was ridiculous. Those people own that house, they put you out. I am thankful that South Fulton has put into place about that squatters. That they can get these people out of your house, but there needs to be something that these people are coming under and taking your deed for your house that you stayed in. We need something.
I agree with you. There was a bill, and off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there was a bill with relationship to that specific issue, squatters. And so, let me tell you how you can find some of these things. If you go to Georgia General Assembly, Google Georgia General Assembly, once you Google that, you will see that page come up. If you want to see what we do and say, you can actually watch the session. You don't have to be there. You can watch it. Everything we do and say. If you want to find a bill, you know the bill number, or if you just know the words in a bill, you can put it and search it, and it'll come up. You can go and see all the representatives. There's so much information out there, and I want you to be able to find that. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do too, is educate everybody, because even like when I talked to my councilwoman, I said, some people don't understand that you go to the council for certain things, you go to the county for certain things, and then you come to the state for certain things. And I think we need to educate and re-educate people on when and where and how you do that. Because sometimes people think, you're just ignoring me, you're not trying to help me, but that's not the case. It may not be in my purview to do that.
I just wanted to piggyback on something that was said with respect to talking about the people coming in and all the notices that myself included are getting with respect to trying to find my property. I heard 19,000 homes that can purchase by LLCs.
Right.
And I was wondering, could we have something like an overlay district where property could not be purchased for commercial use? Because a lot of times these people put multiple people in one house.
Right.
So we could have an overlay where this has to be residential, family residential property, not LLCs or whatever. Is that possible?
So this is what I want to say. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you think that we come up with legislation?
From people's concerns.
If you are concerned about something and you send it to me, and I look at it and I say, yes, that is an issue that we have to tackle, I send it over to Legislative Council, which we have a whole host of lawyers, and they have their specific areas they deal with. They will look at it and look at the code, what's already in law, and then they will craft a bill for me. And then I will read the bill. I will ask the person that is asked, does this look like what you are asking? And then it will go through the process. But please, please call. Call us, and if you have something that you think we need to drop a piece of legislation, please do that.
Is this one?
This is one.
So I should call your office and
Call my office,
number?
404-656-0202. Do the email. If you already have verbiage about it, do an email. My email is Deborah, D-E-B-R-A. That's the Deborah, not Deborah. We Deborahs have a thing. And they go, oh, my name is Deborah. And I said, so you're going to ignore all those other letters in your name? You're just not going to pronounce those other letters? So Deborah, at house.ga.gov.
What was the last four numbers you mentioned?
0202. Yes, thank you.
Another box we can check as residents, we can start, as individuals or subdivisions, going to some of these planning and zoning meetings. First of all, we first need to know how we are zoned. Because a lot of them meaning investors, are coming in and asking to rezone various areas so they can put those things, those dwelling homes, into our community. But it has to be changed from what it is, from AG1 to CUP or whatever, or to C. And therefore, then you see this structure coming up and you're wondering, how does that happen? So if you're not going to these meetings, Natasha can't do it all. She's one individual. But if we started being advocates for our community and going to these meetings and not protesting, but letting our voice being heard, saying, no, don't rezone this, then we can stop a lot of things from the beginning. I look out at the audience and I don't see anybody from the Old National Corridor coming to our meetings except for Michael Denver and Al.
That's right.
Those are the only.
Because for those who, thank you, and I didn't mean to cut you off. For those of you that don't know, before I even became a state rep, I was going to those meetings. They were the ones, those two people had meetings on a regular basis and had those developers that wanted to come into our community and call the community in, and we sat there and they had to present to us. Where was the office at when we met, where you all met? It was down on National somewhere.
It was several in there. I think.
Okay, but we came and we sat there, they had to tell us. And when they told us and we didn't like it, guess what? We showed up. And I'm gonna tell you how one lone person, and I'm trying not to toot my horn, but I am right now. So next to Carrington Point, you know, it's Summertree, right? That whole mess. That's how I got involved in the first place. When I came here and I purchased it, I didn't do my due diligence. I'm blaming myself because I didn't know, because there were trees in my subdivision and there was only one lane. Trees, and then when they start finishing the development, I'm like, what is that over there? Dilapidated, people were squatting, there was all kinds of stuff going on. So I worked to get with Bill Edwards, was the commissioner at the time. So then this group, after everything got done, this group wanted to put a nursing home of some sort in there. I was happy about that, it seemed right. They kept changing. Oh, it's gonna be one building, now it's gonna be two buildings. We're gonna have security, we're not gonna have security. So guess what? Went to the zoning meeting and I presented, they denied it. Went down to the board of commissioners, they denied it. So even if you can't get a group, one voice, come out and give your reasons why, and they will deny it. So we have to be our own advocates, please. And I know I'm taking over the meeting, but you know, I'm so passionate about this thing. I really, really am. I want to give it back. I'm city manager right now. But if you need me, you have.
So an example of, I'll go back to questions in a second. An example of how we engage with our legislative delegation. One of our priorities this year was a change to the squatter bill. Because in Georgia, the allowance for squatters was just unbelievable. And many of you may have seen the news article that aired demonstrating how, you know, people's properties were being basically hijacked. 1017, gotta get 1017 on. And so we were able to work with some of our colleagues to get a change to the squatting laws. It's not everything we want, but it gives our police and it gives every jurisdiction more teeth to be able to get squatters out of people's homes. But a big problem with that is these LLC-owned homes. You know, it's one of those things where some of this happened, you know, while we weren't looking. You know, when back in 2006 and 7 and 8, when the economy was bad, these investors came in, they scooped up large pieces of properties in our neighborhoods, especially in our neighborhoods. And so you wake up one morning and 19,000 pieces of property are owned by 3 LLCs that have no stake in Georgia. You know, and they are driving up prices. They are having, you know, a detriment on our traditional neighborhoods. How we fight back is, you know, sort of to be determined, but at least now we know. When you know there's a problem, then we figure out from a local perspective, what can we put in place? Great question. I will tell you, split paths are illegal in the city of South Fulton. And so, you know, you can't come into a residential neighborhood and pick out a parcel and take it to the planning commission and the city council and expect that it's gonna be rezoned. That is not happening. Even more recently, you know, a developer wanted to put some townhouses on a residential piece and needed it, and was it in your district or was it in
Five.
District 5? I think it was District 5.
It's in District 5, but there's also a proposal on the table to put townhouses next to the McDonald's. Like, next to the McDonald's, I was at the planning commission and I was there by myself.
Well, the good news is your city council is very dialed in. And when you show up to council meetings, if you're unable to show up, you can write in, you know. Mr. Michael is always present. We can count on him to comment on just about every zoning issue.
Yeah. And he, now, that's not fair to say because Michael Venable was there and Alvin Reynolds was there. But, in terms of, and that was it, besides me and Councilwoman Pritchett.
But ultimately it comes to you,
Yeah,
right?
it ultimately comes to us.
Ultimately, it comes to the city council. What I would say is this, because the planning commission only makes, and staff only make recommendations to the city council. Ultimately, it is a city council decision. You vote for them. And so, to the extent that you're unable to show up in person, if you are able to write in your council comments, those are sent to council ahead of the meeting. They're able to understand your concerns. And, you know, to the extent that you give feedback, I think it's very helpful. This council does listen to constituents, I will say that. So be present and be engaged and make sure that you let your voices heard. And as a staff, we are always trying to figure out what is the better, cheaper, smarter, faster way to get some of these things done. And we are looking at best practices in other places that can help us to bring, you know, ideas to our council to say, you know, this is legislation that can potentially help us with this problem, whatever this problem is. So very good feedback. There were a couple, I know, Mr. Michael had some comments, and then I think I saw another hand.
Fran.
Okay, so in that order. Yes, sir.
My concern is getting the land use plan done and getting that department in range. That department is running like a communist country. If you go back and look on the website for all the informational meetings for the cases, that link has not been proper for the last 8 months solid. You go look at the calendar right now. None of the planning commissions on the city website, they're not listed for the last 5 or 6 months. If I call back and ask a planner about a case, they look like they just got out of the 2nd grade. This is wrong. You know, when you talk about the old days, planners and the departments were extremely engaged with the community. Information was freely flowing. Informational meetings came up, they said, why are you doing this, X, Y, and Z? It comes out properly. Even when we do things with these plans, LCI, we essentially took every business person that doesn't live here, that the only concern was to be for their business, and made that policy. But if you look at some of the things in there, they are detrimental to the residential community of Largo National. Even look at these present zoning cases. They overstep their bounds. Every one of them will say, okay, I will recommend approval, but I also recommend that you change the land use plan. That is not the way it's supposed to work. If I had something that did not comply with the law, I should have said, no, this should not go through, and it should have been a negative result from the county. from the city itself. I mean, it's almost like the city has become an advocate for what they think we need to go instead of being a neutral party. And that is just very, very disturbing. They've essentially said, okay, residents, we don't care about you. Irrelevant what you say, we're gonna go what we wanna do. Every decision, you should have had a meeting with everybody to establish a land use plan, and that should be it. On this current zoning case, there are at least 4 or 5 cases where they say, okay, we should come back and do this, but yeah, change the land use plan. There's one where they're saying, okay, we want a daycare open in an industrial area. Okay, let's go change land use plan and make that work. I've got a commercial property here at Old National. Well, let's go change the land use plan to residential. That doesn't help me. You've got another agricultural thing. Well, we feel sorry because we're doing stuff to help, disadvantaged people. All well and good. You are in business. I need you to make a business decision. All of these cases should have been administratively pulled because it's improper the way they were put out.
So, couple thoughts. One, I think I think it is incumbent on the council to make the final decision. I don't believe that we are empowered to administratively deny a land use, a zoning application. 2, the land use plan is problematic. The council has acknowledged that. We met at retreat. They've given us some directives on bringing that back in order for the community to opine, for the council to opine, to adopt an updated land use plan when the comprehensive plan is adopted, which is gonna be in 2025. There'll be many opportunities for the community to be engaged in that process. In terms of the experience of staff, I will agree that the level of experience across the city is not gonna be what it was or what it is in places that have been established. We have probably a 2.5 year tenure across the entire city. I am the 4th city manager in the city in 6.5 years, if you count the people who were initially brought on board. So the level of our tenure and experience is not gonna be what it was in the old days. So what I ask of the community is, thank you for your input. All of the input is being recorded, all of the input is being, and all of the comments are being recorded. All I ask is that you give us some time and patience to be able to develop, to be able to gain experience, to be able to gain the kinds of competencies that are needed. Because across the board, we are a toddler in an adult body, and that is just a fact. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for always being an advocate. Thank you for coming and to our meetings, and thank you for encouraging even the council for their feet to be held to the fire. And so, many more things that could be said. You're an expert in this area. I promise you that I am not. And so, but I do thank you for your advocacy, and the council does hear you.
I can accept a lot, except for the updating of information.
And that's unacceptable.
I mean, if you can go back and
Yeah.
print this in the HAC and the Fulton County Reporter or whatever, and you can't put that on your own city website, that's
unacceptable.
ridiculous.
That's unacceptable. And, the people are here taking those notes. That has to be fixed. And there are other issues on our website that have to be fixed. And it is dead in our center. We literally just hired a new public affairs director. The web administration is under him. He's been there 2 weeks, and it is front and center. And you will see some improvements in that. Ultimately, too, what I've shared with both the planning director and with the city clerk is we should be using the same system that we advertise the city council meetings for the planning commission meetings. That way there's a consistent look and feel that the community can get used to when they go, which is where I came from. So all these meetings that are publicly noticed, the citizens can go to the same place on the website, and you may see work session, regular meeting, planning commission meeting, zoning appeals board, all of the boards and commissions that are required to meet, we have a central place where the community knows they can go and find those. So that is a work in progress, and you're right, it is unacceptable that those things are not updated. That is my responsibility to take care of. So thank you for that.
The only last thing is that it gives the impression that this community is not involved. I will listen to council meetings and they'll say, well, did anybody show up? Did anybody say yes or no? They couldn't. They didn't know about it or they couldn't log in for it. And for some reason, you know, I don't get it. If something is wrong, if one person said it was wrong, it's no different than 100 people saying it's wrong. Wrong is wrong. Well, you know, a lot of people didn't come up here. We didn't have no big crowd. That's irrelevant. I mean, it's just an attitude here that's just so frustrating that people can't look at it from a business standpoint and say, these are the facts, this is what I'm making my decision off of. Not because I bought a lot of signs and wore t-shirts. That's not about making decisions that represent a government. And I'll let it go.
All right, back here, there were like 3 hands. So, yes, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, ma'am.
No.
My name is Frederick Devon. I'm president of Old National East Subdivision. And I want to piggyback off of the Hillendale representative about communication. We have the old saying, if you see something, say something. But I also want to find out what is your procedure or your procedures of how to communicate with you and to hold the city accountable for if I say, well, there's an empty house and rats, in our neighborhood, and I send a report in, how can I follow up that report? And to whom would I follow it up?
Sure.
Because we have a lot of things going here, and it starts with our community, okay? Talking about squatters, we're talking about Airbnb, we got 10 people in one house, people coming from Clayton County over catching a bus in Fulton County. There's a lot going on, and our neighbors know. We know.
So,
But
sorry.
I would like to find out what form of communication to code enforcement or police or whoever I gotta call, say that this is happening here, and you're gonna get back with me in 30 days or 20 days, okay? And how are we gonna fix it?
All right.
Thank you.
So don't all scream at me and throw stuff at me. I know you all got water bottles, don't throw them at me. But we are revamping C-Click Fix, and we're encouraging you to use C-Click Fix.
Say it again?
C-Click Fix. We are encouraging you to use that mechanism. I know it hasn't been as responsive in the past. We recently just stood up a call center, that 4311 number. That is physically human beings that are going to answer the phone during business hours. And so if you put something in C-Click Fix, you did not get an answer on it, you could, on the home page of the website, I checked it this morning before I left home. The phone number to contact us is at that 4311 number. If you don't get an answer to your C-Click Fix timely, you can follow up with that number. What I'm in the process of doing is having that call center, those individuals also track C-Click Fix requests that are past due. So if you put in a request and it has not been responded to, what we found, and Councilwoman Williams-Brown will tell you, I have found so many things that need to be fixed and cleaned up and backlogs of items. When people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm the janitor. I'm cleaning up stuff. And so what we found is there are hundreds of C-Click Fix requests that have been made from 3 years ago that are just sitting there. So part of what we're doing right now is our call center staff, and these are real people who live in South Fulton who are sitting literally outside my office. From where I sit, I can see them. So we're not sending you to a bot or an out-of-town call center or a recording. These are like real people who live here. And so what we're trying to do is clean up the old and have a procedure, to your point, where we tell you this will be responded to within 2 business days or 24 hours. If it is an emergency, then obviously pick up the phone and call. If you have not received a response or the issue hasn't been addressed, pick up the phone and call. So that was one of my new initiatives in this current year budget, to hire an actual physical customer relations center, stand them up, and start to be more customer centric and build better relationships and be more responsive to the things that you're raising in the community.
What are the hours again?
They're Monday to Friday, 8 to 5.
8 to 5. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you, good question. There was somebody over here, and then, yes, ma'am.
Yes, a very quick question. First of all, I did not introduce myself as per your request. I'm Carolyn Lisbon. I have lived in this neighborhood for 48 years. My question is, what is the time lapse? What does that look like between funding that you say has been approved and the actual start of the work for this funding? Because a lot of times we hear the funding, but we're not sure what the time lapse looks like between the money is here and this is the approximate start date, or what procedures have to take place between funding and the start.
Great question, and I'm gonna give you the lawyer answer. It depends. So, it depends. The first thing is to get the money.
Right.
Right? So let's talk about standing up the call center. So, the council approved it, then I developed a job description. HR did what HR does, you know, they put it out for advertising. We got hundreds of people applying, almost none of them were qualified. And so, so what I thought was gonna be maybe a 60-day implementation turned to be a lot longer. So that was approved in October. We had our first CRM come on board in January. So relatively speaking, not terribly long. Let's talk about the pools. So I knew we were gonna put the pools in, you know, part of the, you know, Parks Master Plan. I put it in the budget, you know, what I call the deposit on the master plan, and we're gonna do the pools. We decided where they're gonna go, one in District 4, one in District 5. We went ahead and created a scope of work, because in the government space, we can't just go out and buy stuff, right? We have to follow a legal procedure. A public works project over a certain dollar amount, we have to go out to bid. So we had the scope of work ready. So October 1st, budget's approved, we went out to bid. Gotta go out to bid for 30 days, minimum. We did that process. We got bids that came back that were astronomical. The cost of the 2 pools, we estimated $3.5 million for 2. It came in almost $2.7 million for 1. And so when we looked at what had happened in other jurisdictions, it didn't really line up. You know, because the reason we picked that amount of money is because we looked at what had been done in other places. We didn't just come up with it. We said, well, they just built a pool in Clayton County. They just built a pool here. You know, we added some money for inflation, but 2.7 for 1 pool seemed, you know, not competitive, and we only had 1 bidder, which says to me, that's not competitive. So we went back, we said, okay, we're gonna frame it a little bit differently, change some things in the scope. We did a pre-bid meeting, we had bidders show up, they asked questions about it, and then we did it again. We got no bidders the second time. So what we're doing now is we're polling the people who came to the pre-bid to try to understand why they didn't submit a proposal. What is it about our bid that has made them not participate? And so, and we're going to make some more modifications. What we're going to do is have the park planner, the same people who did our park plan, come to the community, talk to the community about what is envisioned, and then design it and go out to bid again. So something that we expected to be able to bring in front of council in January to be awarded for construction is now delayed. And things like that kind of happen all the time. The fence for this facility, the general services director and the parks director have to settle on exactly what that looks like. We've set aside a significant amount of funding for it. They have to agree that this is what we want, we're going to go out to bid for this thing. And then when we get bids, we'll come back to council and say, this is what we recommend. Staff does not award contracts. We recommend to the council, this is what we believe. And then we have to stand things up. Anybody had any work done on their house in the last year? How easy was it for you to get somebody to come out? And then when they came out, how much of it was in the budget that you thought it was gonna be?
Oh, it exceeded.
It is insane what is happening out there.
Yes.
You know, I tried to get some work done on my house. What they came and told me was 3 times what was in my budget. And so I had to keep plugging away, change my scope, you know, decide, you know what, some of this we're gonna have to put off till later. You know, the whole construction space is pretty crazy. And so we have the same issues that you have. You know, it's hard to get people who are willing to commit to do the work. We need to make sure that the people that we hire are competent, they have a track record, they can really do the work, they can get a bond, they can, you know, they can get insurance, because we don't want to pay them government money to do a project and then do a bad job with it. So the answer to the question is, it depends. A lot of times things are not nearly as straightforward and easy as they were, as you said, in the old days.
I
Yes.
have 2 questions. My first question is, why is the garbage collection being charged off at the real estate tax?
So you want to ask your second question, or you want me to answer that?
The second question, we supposed to have street sweepers, how many are there, and what streets are you sweeping?
So I can answer the first question. So the solid waste collection is not a tax. It is being processed for us through the tax commissioner's office purely for convenience and cost. When we looked at a third party to do it, it would have cost us, which would mean it would cost you about 3 times more if we used a private collection entity to do it. Fulton County Tax Commissioner does it for at least 2 other jurisdictions, including the city of Atlanta. So they were able to give us a much more reasonable cost to do it. It is being done once a year, again, because it's less expensive. Some of you have mortgage companies who have incorporated it in your mortgage. If you have a mortgage, that is not us. That was them. They made that decision. So, you know, I've had it both ways. You know, when I had my house in Albany, I paid all my own stuff, my own taxes, my own insurance, and anything else. But that was because my mortgage company allowed that. Here, my mortgage company doesn't allow that. Anything that is a bill is put on my escrow and I pay it through my monthly payment. That's not a decision that I get to make. In those 30 pieces of paper that you sign when you buy a house, one of those pieces of paper says we have the right to incorporate any expenditure that could become indebtedness against your property in your escrow. You know, we don't read those 30 pages, you know, because what are we gonna say? No, I don't want that. Well, then you don't get your house. You know, that's kind of the way that works. But it's not a tax, it is a fee, and it is being paid for, it is being collected by the Fulton County Tax Commissioner. The second question, to my knowledge, we have a small number of sweepers. I think we have 4, and they're very prescribed routes that we sweep. It's not nearly enough to cover, you know, the 100 square miles of the city. It's a start. But we can get your information and I can tell you specifically what that is. and we can tell you specifically what their routes are. Typically, they operate early in the morning to try to not be conflicting with traffic, but I can find that information out for you specifically.
And I have one more question, it's a garbage collection. Now, you all say it's a garbage collection fee.
Yes, sir.
When they report to the bank, they say it's a tax.
I'm sorry, when they what?
When they report to the bank or your mortgage company, they say it's a tax. So
It's not.
is it a tax or a collection?
It's a fee. It's not a
No,
tax.
but they're telling the bank that it's a tax.
The banks know better. If the banks are telling you it's a fee,
I'll talk to the lawyers.
yeah, it's not a tax, it's a fee.
Yes, but
Now, it is a required fee.
I can show this to you, I'll show it to you.
Okay. I don't know who the they is, but it's not a tax. There is no garbage tax, it's a fee.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing, it's a fee.
It's a
But
fee.
they're telling the bank, whatever, it's a tax.
If
I
the,
understand. I'll
okay,
show it to you.
it's a fee,
I'm saying the same thing you're saying.
sure, it's a
But
fee,
if you read it, when you send it to the bank or the mortgage company as a tax.
okay. I can't control the Fulton County Tax Commissioner, perhaps because it's coming over from them, they perceive it as a tax, it's not a tax.
But then maybe the city, the commissioner knows that this is a fee.
He knows, trust me, he knows. He's been doing this a long time, he knows it's a fee.
I got a comment.
Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
I'm Katora Turner. Is that Nancy Sargent right there?
It is.
Hey, Henry's wife. I just want to give a compliment, not a complaint. On my street, I think it was about in January or early February, on my block, there was an issue with 19 people living in the house, 2 doors down from me. And we called code enforcement and the police department. And I know when we started calling, it took about 3 months, I think, for them to basically work on this issue. But I want to give them a compliment for getting them folks out of that house because it was causing an issue with my quality of life.
Sure.
They were doing donuts in the middle of the road. They were doing all kinds of stuff. We called code enforcement and we called police. And I just want to give a compliment to them for getting that issue resolved. I think they were over there 2 days ago. I think the either owners of the property or whoever were cleaning it out. And we're so grateful that y'all were able to get them folks out of our neighborhood. I don't know if you want to call them squatters or what you want to call it. Because my understanding, they were doing all kinds of illegal
Yeah.
activity in that
Yeah.
home. The next block over, we had an issue with a gentleman, I think he's the homeowner. He wanted to make this home a, fix-it shop, car fix shop. He had all kinds of cars and things of that nature in the yard, on the street, just messing with the quality of life of our neighborhood. We called code enforcement, took some time, but by my understanding, they got on his case and he's cleaning that up. So I just want to give a compliment.
Thank you.
And not a complaint.
Thank you, and, thanks for the guys who are in the room. We have to do things the right way. We have to make a case, the police have to make a case if there's illegal activity going. We can't just show up and throw people out. We have to go through the process, we have to go through municipal court. A lot of times it feels painful and long, but, I'll make sure to pass that on.
Thank you.
I-
I actually, somebody came to my house to get information about the house.
Right,
I gave them videos from my Ring camera.
perfect,
Okay, and I think they shared it with, the councilwoman as well.
sure.
But it had got really bad during, it started in the middle of the summer and it progressed up until the end of the year. So we started noticing it in the summertime and it just got progressively worse. Yeah.
But thank you for being a good neighbor, thank you for seeing something and saying
Yeah.
something, helping them to build a case.
Yeah,
both
it
in-
was a community effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. It really does take a village.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
question. Well, speaking of making a case, can you give us a sense of how difficult it is to make that kind of case? I have at least 3 homes in my neighborhood that have been converted to this, multiple tenants kind of thing. And I know it's illegal, but once it happens, and it's been in place for at least 2 years, how do we, as a community, help code or whoever needs to be helped to make that case? And how difficult is that process?
Well, I'm gonna turn it over to the experts, because I don't make cases, but I empower the people who do.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maisha Dill. I'm a detective with South Fulton Police Department, and I have been tasked with starting our first Citizens Police Academy. So the questions that you're having, like when you asked about how you had the steps it takes once you make those calls, that's the type of information you get when you attend the Citizens Academy. What we're teaching you is the logistics of how we operate. It's not just us that'll be in attendance. We have 911, we have Grady EMS, we have code enforcement, license and permits, park and recs, our different programs we have, like PAL program. We have our intelligence unit that will talk to you guys about the cameras and all those different things that they've been discussing with you all. So this will be a 10-week program for citizens, 9-week program for businesses. And it's every Wednesday from 6 to 9. And during that time, basically, the goal of the Citizens Academy and the Business Academy is for our citizens to understand logistically how we function, and for you all to give us your feedback to know how we can effectively serve you. Because we are public servants and our job is to serve our community, but how better to know how to serve somebody, to customize that service by understanding what it is you need from us. So that's why I came here today. I'm back there. We've been trying to advertise it on our Facebook page and things of that nature, but I had people send in that they wanted to register, but I've only gotten probably about 7 completed applications. We have 30 seats to fill. And so we really want to get the information out there, so when you have the problems that arise, you actually know how to effectively get the results that you need. And
Police Academy.
yes, and so we have the Business Academy is for the businesses within the city of South Fulton. Their component will be a little different because they will have things that affect a business, like there'll be like a mock mass casualty event where we'll have police, fire, EMS, and it'll be like a mock truck thing for them. Citizens Academy has the shooting simulator, driving simulator. The Business Academy doesn't get that. So there's some things that will be the same, but then some things that will be different. And it answers even the simple questions like, why is that car just driving around? A lot of times, well, before I became police, my background is healthcare administration. I thought that anytime a police officer went to a call, lights and sirens would be running. But that's not the case. It depends on the priority of the call. So it answers those type of questions. And you know, those fun questions, do all cops eat donuts? No, we don't. I like tacos. But you know, it's just for us to know our community and our community to get a better insight of who we are, because we're in a time where we like transparency. So what better way to get that but from the officers who function in those units themselves? Yes, ma'am.
And this has been a concern that we've had in terms of trying to communicate with our community about what is going on. We don't have a centralized place where we can put information out. We're about to the city of South Fulton, I can go here and find everything. I've gone to the city website and it's sparse. I've gone to the city website and found out what programs y'all have. And it's like either not updated or very sparse. Is it possible that we can get a one place where, as a citizen, I can go there and tap into whatever information I need, like how do I register for a so on and so forth?
Well, so far as that's concerned, I actually just had a conversation with one of the businesses who asked the same thing that you asked. That would be a tier higher than just the agency. The agency in itself, we're working on getting something together towards everything that we offer from our police standpoint, keeping in one centralized location. But that would have to be a conversation between the top heads to come together with some sort of area where all of the different services that are offered within the city, you guys can have updated information, like these are programs happening here. These are the difference between like the camera program that we have going on, the Citizens Academy we have going on. The licensing and permits have another alarm thing for like to register your alarms. So that's a great idea. So that would be something that I can bring back to my command so that we can work on probably getting something across the board, because a lot of times Fire and I work together. Fire and I talk a lot. There's things that Fire and I talk about that City Hall didn't know that I was working on, but that's because, you know, it's just, sometimes that information just gets stopped at a certain level. So now that we know that that's something that you'll like. And then also, you mentioned that too, on that meeting that we had on Monday, you mentioned that about the information being updated and communications. They know about updating the park information, because that was discussed. So now we know that you would like our information updated in some sort of way as well, so.
Or at least one place, and maybe this is a question for the citizen, that we have one place where I as a citizen can go to and find the resources I need, and the information will be updated and correct. Because just trying to get information out from, next door neighbor or somebody's, flyers that went out, that's not consistent, and it's not working very well.
Yeah. So going back to the conversation regarding the website and, centralizing the meeting locations, centralizing, it sounds like we need a citizen resource page, and, the departments all feed into it, so you can go to one spot. So as we talk through, updating the website, those are the that's good feedback, because that helps as we do that work, it helps us to know how to think more citizen-centrically, as opposed to, we're basically bureaucrats, and so, we're good bureaucrats, but we're bureaucrats, so we think very much in department mode, but, we have to think more citizen mode, to make sure that you're able to find the information that you need in a more streamlined manner. But I wanted, Major Gary to talk a little bit about your question, which is, how to make a case. Because sometimes people don't understand, in Georgia and in most states, property owners have very strong rights. And so even if as a neighbor, you suspect that there are 4 people living there because you see 6 cars and so on, the police department can't just go to these, knock on the door and say, we're coming in to check if this is a split pad. It's a little more complicated than that. And so, and we get sued all the time, by the way. Everybody, every day, we get served. So we're trying to make sure we do things the right way. So, I'll let him speak to kind of how to make a case, because that isn't really what I do.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Major Gary Johnson. I'm over the Field Operations Division. When you all call 911, emergency responders come out. All of those officers are who I'm managing that division for. I have Captain McCain with me here today. He's over one of the watches, a set of officers that come out and respond on certain days. And my other captain is Captain Hattie Cotton-Tukes. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with her. Split pads. So there is an owner of that particular property. It could be a person that is within that home already and they're subleasing to somebody, or they both residents or more than 2 residents are renting to the owner outside of the owner lives somewhere else. What we do is if we get a complaint, we investigate what the complaint is. We'll send an officer out and we can do what is called a knock and talk. We'll knock on the door, and depending on what the situation is, we'll speak to them about it, try and rectify it. If it's a situation where we find that they are squatting, then that's a more involved situation. We have to get our code enforcement involved, get our detectives involved. The owner has to be involved, because then they have to make an affidavit that there are people in their home squatting, and they aren't finding an easy way to get them out. Back in the day, they used to go to the marshal's office and fill out information. The marshal's office would go in and evict them. Now it's working with the sheriff's office. And we're trying to pass legislation. I think it went through the House and should be the Senate. And then after the Senate approves it, then it's for the governor's signature. And once the governor signs off on it, then we will have the authority to go and evict persons when we find out that they are squatting and it's illegal for them to do that. So, yes, sir.
Yes, so I think what I'm hearing you say that these regulations on how people use their homes and purchase it, they could be from China or some other place and purchasing these homes, because a lot of people from out of this country are buying these homes. And so, as far as regulations, this is controlled by the state, what you can do or cannot do? Are you saying that, or is this something the city can come up with a plan to address the issues that the citizens have been, every meeting I've been to has been complaints about squatters and how people, for instance, if somebody owns a home and they put them out, so they put all the furniture out on the sidewalk, all the garbage is piled up on the side of the house. And so we can't do nothing.
No, you
What are
can
we
do
saying?
something, that's a code issue. Code enforcement can go out and cite that property owner, and they have to clean that up.
But they live in China.
What if he live in New York?
Well, they still will communicate with them, and they have a certain amount of time, and then they can go to court, and then the court will pass a judgment on that property owner.
So who would, you know?
The first step is to contact either police or code.
Okay.
We'll come out, make an assessment, and then we'll move from there. And if you wanna find out more about what's happening with that space, then you contact either one of us and we'll narrow it down, what's going on.
So one of the things that in a jurisdiction I served in prior is when you were a landlord, if you evicted a tenant, you had to work with solid waste to take care of the set out. And you had to do it within, 8 hours of the stuff getting out there. We don't have that. That is something that we'll probably get in front of council. But to, all of yours point, if they're in China, what's the likelihood they're gonna comply? So the next step is, we can go ahead, if they don't take care of it, we can go ahead and take care of it and then charge them for it. If they don't pay for it, we can put it on their solid waste bill, which ultimately ends up, being billed by the tax commissioner. We're not quite there yet, but that is something that's a work in progress, because we now know it is a prolific problem. Whether it is legal or illegal, whether it is when there is a squatter, people are just putting stuff out. And it's becoming a nuisance, it's a public health hazard. So that is something that we're gonna be working with council on, and also working with our vendor, because we'll notice them, we'll tell them they have to do it, but if they don't do it within a certain time, we take care of it. Basically, we're gonna pay for it, but we'll bill them for it. So, sure. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Captain McCann, I'm the only guy from the county. This cleared this up the other day when I was speaking at an event. There are two types of squatters. We've taken the word squatter and kind of generalized it into one. There's one squatter when your lease is up and you've legally been there for 12 months. And then all of a sudden you say, I'm not really renewing my lease, but I'm not leaving. So they've been there legally there for 12 months and just said, the lease is up, I'm not moving it out. They said, I'm not moving now, you got to put me out, because they've been a resident there. The squatters that are coming in and just saying, that house looks empty, I'm gonna move in there. That's a separate squatter. Okay, meaning that they never had the legal right to be in there in the first place, because they never rented it, they never leased it. However, that now that they're there, they're considered the resident of that home, and that's when these LLCs, that's the problem that we're having. Because those LLCs own that house, but they're, to your point, you said China, they could be. So that LLC, a lot of times, they don't even know that the people are in that house until you guys start to complain. That's when we get involved and start, and that's why he said we'll get out and assess what we have. Because we have to treat this other set of squatters a little differently than those squatters that basically stole, and that's what we kind of say now, they stole that house. They didn't legally rent it, they stole that house.
Is that what happened on Orley Terrace?
On Orley, no, he was actually a renter at that home. He actually rented that home. Just never moved out and started having these parties there. And other than that, it's ongoing court case, so we can't really speak anymore on that. But he didn't steal it. He was actually paying rent to be there, just never left.
What about the ones that advertise the property as being like the property manager? Or maybe a realtor, and they're advertising the property that's not,
There is some fraud out there going on.
Is there something in the place to stop that or minimize that?
So information is key. A lot of times, we'll get information in the police department, and I'll hear what's going on, and I'll go to the Fulton County property, website and put in the street name or the specific address, and it'll show me an owner's name. And I'll relay that to my captain or lieutenant and say, this is who the owner is supposed to be, who last paid taxes. So if you meet that person, then you got the right person. There's someone else claiming, check their ID and take it from there.
Time is key on this. I'm gonna tell you, we were at a home where a resident was deployed to Afghanistan. She said, told her neighbor, look out for my house for me, I'm gonna be gone a while. About 6 months went by, and five or six months went by.
The lights are telling us time is up.
5 or 6 months went by, and the owner, the next door neighbor who was looking out for the house called and said, hey, I didn't know you sold your house. She said, I just sold my house, what are you talking about? Well, your house here, moving stuff in. And he said, well, just call the police. Call them, please. I'm not in the sell my house. They never moved in because we were there in time enough to say, hey, look, this person, the person we live owns his house in Afghanistan. We have video showing you just pulled up. You're trying to move in somebody's house that you know is not here.
Right.
So we got there quick enough
Right.
to prevent that squatter from becoming a squatter, because she had the presence of mind, said, look, I'm gonna be gone for a little while. Look out for it. He sees it, he calls her, she verifies, I'm not moving. He calls us, bam, it was over right then, that day, not 5 months later down the road. So look out for your neighbors, and if you see a house that's on your block that says, hey, I know that house has been vacant for 6 or 7 months, go ahead and call us, we'll get them in and then verify before all of that. Because once they start getting moved in and they can try to pull up this lease that's a fake lease, it becomes a little late for us.
Last question.
I'd like some clarity on what the difference is between a squatter and a trespasser. Because if somebody breaks into my house, which is what they're doing, how do you have squatter's rights? What is the difference between a squatter and I walk into my house one day and there's some random person there? And normally, under normal circumstances, you call the police and say, someone broke into my house.
Well, that
So
is
now you're a
different.
squatter, what makes them a squatter? What's the difference?
Squatter is one that is taking probably ownership and living within the residence.
For 30 days or more?
It could be 15 days. I mean,
I'm talking about, I walk into my house.
You've been at work and you come home
I
with
was away
somebody.
on vacation for a week, I come back, there was somebody in my house. My house was vacant for a week, I came back, there's somebody in it. I'm gonna call the police and say somebody broke in my house.
Right.
They're gonna say, no, I live here. So now what?
Can I jump in? So what I've been told has happened is they find a way to get into the house, let's say through your back door. They break into your house and then they immediately get the locks replaced. And it's all replaced, it all looks new. So there is no evidence for the police to say this was a break-in. So now it's your word against the other person's word.
I have a deed, I have mail in my name.
Right, and that's why I said
That's why we're trying to get the law changed.
Right.
That's why, because a lot of times they'll produce a lease, but all of us know you can go online and produce a lease. So this is a criminal activity that is going on and it's fraud. That's why we're trying to get the law changed to be more in favor of the legitimate property.
And it does, and the squatters bill is making its way through the General Assembly, so it does look like that is going to pass and go to the governor's desk.
But to the extent that you can write to your state legislature, your state senator, send an email saying, I'm concerned about this in my neighborhood, please make sure this passes. You know, the governor's office, send an email to the governor's office.
What I wanna know is how it's going to be treated in the scenario that I just gave. If I come back from vacation and somebody's in my house. and I-
We can't get in.
You're there, right? So an officer is there, we'll look at your ID, find out who's inside, we'll make the arrest.
Okay.
All right.
If they can make it.
Because what we do is we'll interview your neighbors and say, hey, has anybody moved? She said, no, nobody lives with her. So that's the investigative piece of it. See, it's not that we're just gonna come and say, okay, yeah, you live here now. No, we're gonna ask your neighbors. Is this, has she moved out? No, she lives there. And see, that's the steps that we would take instead of just coming there and saying, you're saying you're going on vacation, you come home and they're there. No, they may be there, and at this point, we'll go, like I said, your neighbors will ask, different questions, things such as that. Say, no, your next door neighbor will say, no, she lives there. Nobody lives there with her. At that point, we know the lease is bogus because we have immediate knowledge that's, now, if you've been gone for 2 months and that happens, that's a different story.
No, I still say, I know that you have a residence, and we look at your ID, and it matches what the tax, you paid your taxes. And so you're saying you own this property, there's nothing to debate that. We know that they're inside, we could take them with us.
But they got a lease too. It happened right next door to me, and it was a mess.
It
It took
is.
months.
Yes, it's a mess and it takes months. We are tracking the squatters bill pretty carefully. Like I said, it looks like that is going to pass and head to the governor's desk. Of course, if you're familiar with the Georgia General Assembly, we got 2 days, and this, I can tell you as a former staffer for Governor Barnes, that these last few days are when all the shenanigans happen. And they wait till they think you're asleep, and that's why people like me have to stay under the Gold Dome as long as the General Assembly is in session. Cause they will do stuff, like literally Wednesday, Thursday, they broke for lunch. During the lunch recess, the Rules Committee went and threw some additional bills on the calendar that nobody was anticipating, which caused a lot of uproar because now committees were scheduled to meet, things were scheduled to happen. The legislators had to cancel meetings, committees had to cancel meetings, because now all of a sudden we've got to go vote on things we weren't prepared to vote on. So the last week leading up to Sine Die is always a mess. That's nothing unusual, but that's just kind of the name of the game. So we're staying vigilant to make sure that bill makes it across the finish line, Sine Die. But what it seems like I'm hearing is that probably in about another 6 months, I need to bring the city manager back. Right. So she hasn't gone running, screaming out the door yet, so I'm grateful for that. So probably I'll bring her back in about 6 months or so that we can do another town hall where she can answer questions. And, please do encourage the community to come. Y'all know I be trying to get y'all answers to stuff, but it only works if everybody shows up. So we're gonna stop. She has a hard stop at 1. We need to get her back on task because we have council meeting Tuesday, and there's some requests we've made that I know she's got to go and tend to. In the back, we have our community policing division. I know you signed my sheet. Please go sign their sign-in sheet, because that is their record, to show that 1, they were here, and 2, people showed up. Because, they've got to turn in their report. So please make sure that you sign their sign-in sheet, and then they've got some collateral and some giveaways for you to take home with you. The next, I will work with as I said before, the city manager requested that council go to quarterly town hall meetings instead of doing the monthly. So there'll be another one in Q2. I gotta figure out when, but look for it probably in June, after the bingo. So there's Father's Day bingo at Burdett that will be coming out soon. Because Burdett has a bigger space, before y'all jump on me. Burdett has got a big room where we can set up the tables to do bingo.